Hi guys, perhaps it's a bit early for Hero of the Week, but Kwajo Tweneboa is certainly a candidate. Now, he appeared on Newsnight where he was talking about the perceived burden asylum seekers have on the state and the protests that are erupting as a result of that. Now, Kwajo has a simple solution. Allow asylum seekers to work. Have a listen to this.
Well, I think there's a lack of understanding about this issue, especially hotel asylum accommodation, and the housing crisis as a whole is an issue that a lot of people care about. I think the second most spoken about subject matter, but what we don't often talk about is the fact that asylum seekers don't have recourse to public funds, and the only other alternative is for them to be on the streets. And in fact, what I think should happen is actually we look at asylum seekers waiting for their applications to be processed and allow them to work. The reason I say that is because it gives them income. They can afford to pay for their own accommodation. We won't be relying on hotels. They won't have to be living on £30 or £40 a week, but more importantly, it will generate billions and save billions that can be invested into communities up and down the country where these sorts of protests are happening, and it has some of the highest poverty rates in the country. And fundamentally, that's what I think this government needs to be looking at. We can't just label those out protesting all as racist or fascist, because we're talking about millions of people, and if we do that, we risk pushing them further into the hands of right-wing commentators online or parties banking on sowing division in order to get the keys to number 10 at the next general election.
Wonderful. Complete agreement. You know, the government need to approach this in a different way, and unfortunately no one seems to be off the idea, within the mainstream parties at least, no one seems to be off the idea, well, we need to allow them to work. You know, one of the things you see when you look at what the right-wing commentators are doing and what Farage and Reform are doing when it comes to the asylum seekers is they keep raising the point how, look, there are veterans, there are British homeless people, there are the poor in Britain who don't get any support or don't get sufficient support from the state. And how many times have you heard the argument, well, if you want a free house, just get on a boat, cross the channel, and you get a free house, or you get a free mobile phone, or you get, three meals a day for nothing. This rhetoric has an impact. And what Kwajo said is right. You know, not everyone who's out there protesting is far right or is a fascist, is a racist. There are people who have been convinced that you need to protest in this way in order to see change. And these people are angry. You know, their communities have been abandoned by successive governments. And now the far right are coming to them and saying, hey, you know, we're on your side. We're the ones who are protesting. Where is the government? Where are the mainstream parties? We are here to stand with you. They're taking advantage of the situation. Now, Kwajo mentioned here, if you allow them to work. Yes, unfortunately, many of them are working, but they're working in the black economy. So they're not paying taxes and they're not receiving the sort of support that a normal worker would. So if you allowed asylum seekers to work, they would be able to pay their way. They would be able to work in a regular economy. They would not be in a situation where they're not paying taxes and working for exploitative employers. They would be contributing. Isn't that be a win-win for everyone? Now, the question has to be asked, why is the government not doing this? I haven't heard a Labour minister explain why, but if you go back a few years when the Conservatives were in charge, I think it was Robert Jenrick, the immigration minister at the time, who said it would create a pull factor. This is insane. He said it would, I think it was him, it was a Tory minister anyway, who had said that it would create a pull factor if you allowed asylum seekers to work. But in many cases, they are working and they're not coming to Britain to work. They're coming to improve their lives, to escape persecution, war, or something like that. Many of them are coming across because they can't, to work, obviously, because they can't enter via safe routes, and this is the only way. But the asylum seekers that are successful in their claims are not arriving to work, but they are ending up working in the black economy. So what is the point of saying, well, we're going to keep these people out of the regular economy? Embrace them. They are there working. They want to work. They want to pay tax. They want to contribute. They want to be able to build up something. And it would, of course, release the pressure that has been building up by the far right, by Farage, when it comes to the costs these people have on the taxpayer. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.